Welcome to another installation of the House 94 podcast. Greetings. Well, it's a nighttime episode, and the sun's not out. It's a sad day in Wakanda. I know I jokingly referred to Hyde Park as Wakanda, and that's because after living in Streeterville, which is a much more affluent white area, I moved into Hyde Park, and it's a really a more diverse, much more urban area, and it reminds me of what Wakanda must have been like. And you got the downtown skyline and the lake and all that, so that's why I jokingly refer to it as Wakanda. But all jokes aside, this is not a joking night because we just had a major loss in the Black community. We lost two actual giants. One who had lived a full life, John Thompson, who was a coach at Georgetown, and anybody our age grew up loving the Hoyas. No matter where you were from, that was probably the first time you ever saw a team of Black guys with a Black coach reach that level of success. So we lost John Thompson today. He put a lot of great players in the NBA, gave a lot of guys great careers in college education from a wonderful school. So we lost him, and then we also lost Chadwick Boseman, who was he was like a real life superhero. And, Chadwick Boseman obviously was the lead character in Black Panther, where he played a real superhero, but he also played Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall. He played James Brown, and he had, several other iconic roles. And he was a real champion in our community and a titan in the entertainment industry. So we just want to today kind of talk about the death of those brothers and the impact it has on the community. And we're also going to talk a little bit about, death and how it has impacted our lives, and, kind of talk about some of the things we've done to cope and some of the issues that we've had to deal with, and some deaths of some loved ones in our lives. So, to kick off, let's talk about, first of all, talking about what Chadwick Boseman and John Thompson meant to you guys. Cool, kick us off.
Man, two giants, man. I remember think about John Thompson, man. I mean, the main thing that comes to my mind is Allen Iverson. I mean, I remember today I watched his Hall of Fame speech, and he said John Thompson saved his life. And I mean, that's just strong. And you can talk Pat Ewing, so many guys that he helped. And then with Mr. Boseman, I mean, Black Panther, man, it doesn't get no better than that, man. The guy was such a wonderful soul. I saw his commencement speech at Howard. I mean, just an all around great American.
Chuck, jump in.
I totally agree with Cool. I mean, I grew up just like every, on the West Coast in Oakland. Thought Georgetown was an all Black school, and I remember the day I bought my first pair of Jordans. It was Georgetown colors that Georgetown wore. And I was just like, I killed two birds with one stone, had me some Jordans, and I got Georgetown Hoya colors. Had the Patrick Ewing jersey. It was sad, it was a lot of this. It's just reminding me this, like, fuck 2020, man. It's a lot that we have to swallow, but we're gonna keep it moving. With Chadwick Boseman, again, that was a powerful brother. It was really emotional, but I'm so happy for him that he had accomplished so much at a young age, gave back, had great spirit. And it was, for a Black man to represent us like that is just awesome. And he definitely left a legacy. Definitely.
That's what's up. Lou Bingham, what's up? You look pensive, man. Give us something.
2020 has been a rough one, brothers. I'll start with John Thompson. Someone alluded to it already. Anyone in our generation, anyone around our age, watched John Thompson in the 80s as one of the only Black coaches. Only other one that I can think of that immediately comes to my mind is Cheney. But Thompson being 6'4", 6'5", whatever, and a large man was imposing, and wielded his size, made his presence known, and on top of that was very pro-black, unapologetically black. Recruited black students, Patrick Ewing, Mutombo, Alonzo, AI, Sleepy Floyd, Hall of Famers, all All-Stars. I remember back in, what was it, 86, I believe, or 89, Prop 48 had passed a few years before, and John Thompson was in opposition of it, and he walked off the court versus Boston College in his opposition of it. A legend, man. He won a NCAA championship, coached Olympic teams as an assistant and as a head coach, and his players are loyal. Someone alluded to earlier, AI in his acceptance speech in the Hall of Fame broke down in tears. We saw Patrick Ewing and Alonzo through the years give John Thompson his props. Truly a legend. And then we also lost Bozeman, who was the title figure in the Black Panther, and played the role as if he were really regal. This is after he played other roles important in our community as Thurgood Marshall, James Brown, Jackie Robinson. And to learn that he was fighting this battle for the last 4 years and still making movies and keeping it to himself, fighting, lends to the hero. He was truly a hero playing a superhero. I took my son to see the Black Panther and my daughter when it came out. And it's the first time that on screen you saw a black hero who didn't come from some downtrodden background and played it to a T. Truly heroic. We lost a great one there. Personally know someone who knew him, and before Chadwick died, he was singing his praises about how he was one of the best people he ever met. He's not one to sing praises like that.
JT, pick it up.
Yeah, I think, Lou said it really well about John Thompson, because he turned Georgetown into what they call Hoya Paranoia powerhouse and became really the first black coach to lead a team to the NCAA men's basketball championship. And I actually think he was 6'10", Ruby. So even more of an imposing figure. Yeah, and one of the things that he was known for, besides, taking his team to the NCAA tournaments, 14 straight appearances, was that he publicly came out against NCAA rule where, you had certain cutoff requirements and you were denied athletic scholarship to freshmen who didn't meet certain requirements. Yeah, and that was really a biased proposition against people of color. Sometimes people who look like us are the ones giving us these second chances. I think he was important in that regard. And for Chadwick Boseman, to kind of harp on what everyone else said, is that, he played a figure larger than life and gave meaning to the black superhero, which was devoid from, where we've seen Marvel and other cinematic features. And what I found was particularly heartache was that Michael B. Jordan, has taken it, fairly bad in terms of Chadwick. And then what my last point of that is that, to suffer like that in silence, it definitely speaks volumes about his character. But at the same time, do we internalize too much, right? Because we don't want to seem as if we're weak if we have a disease or an affliction as a black man, even in the United States, to say, well, I'm going to keep that to myself because that makes me look weak. Hopefully it wasn't that with Chadwick, but, I definitely wish him rest in power.
Hey, John Thompson's impact to me, I feel like I got a chance to see it firsthand growing up here in D.C. And, he was like a father figure, even for those who never came in contact with him. He's such a large presence. I mean, we alluded to him being 6'10", but he was larger than that physical stature. He was a positive role model in the community, native Washingtonian. And it's amazing how you can start off as he was known before Georgetown as a high school coach here who plucked talent here in D.C. and formed those Georgetown Hoya teams that we're referring to that won the national championship and had all those runs in the NCAA tournaments. And he saw talent here and picked it and then groomed those gentlemen and young men into men of the community that did well, that served the community well. One of my good buddies that I work with professionally actually played for Coach Thompson, and I touched base with him today, and I could just tell, even though he wasn't one of his star players, right? This is somebody from one of his earlier classes of kids who, didn't make it to the NBA, yet he still revered and respected Thompson like any of his greater players, like a Patrick or Alonzo or Iverson. So, it's amazing, again, when you think about his impact. I know on myself, I could think on others. And even like we kind of said in our text, even nationally, because he was so big that people thought Georgetown was a HBCU. I mean, that's kind of funny when you think about it, what kind of presence he had. So, God bless him. May he rest in power and in peace. I thank him for the influence he's had on me and for other native Washingtonians and for young black men and black women, across the board, because I actually know some classmates as well who played basketball in high school who were positively impacted by John Thompson as well. So big ups to Big John.
That's what's up. Let's round out the Maryland crew. Jay Crump, come on in.
Yeah, real quickly, because everybody stated what is, essentially what my thoughts are. And like the man Kwesi said, is that growing up in D.C., man, as far as John Thompson goes, I mean, we grew up here just, realizing him, especially because of the fact he's a D.C. guy. If during the time he was at Georgetown, he recruited, his recruits mainly came from the DC, Maryland area in the beginning. And so, and you could see him and the guys that played for Georgetown, you could see them at the basketball parks in the city. And I just remember just being young, man, just, I would always try to get some Georgetown paraphernalia with some Georgetown basketball and take it down to see my family. When I went to go visit my family in Texas, I would always come down there rocking the Georgetown stuff, the sweatshirt or sweatpants or whatever. And everybody be like, man, where'd you get that stuff at, man? Where'd you get that Georgetown gear at? And, it almost gave me an in with the ladies at like 11, 12, 13 years old, because they were like, oh, man, I wish I could have get something like that, And so, but yeah, man, that Georgetown was the thing, man. Just thinking about those guys from the early days, man, Michael Grammer and Eric Floyd and all those guys, man. And I just remember crying when they lost at Villanova in the 1985 championship. I remember being in like 5th grade and literally to tears when they lost.
Sick.
Back at some point, and they just never could turn the corner. So, but John Thompson, man, rest in peace, man. I love that dude. And, something to say for all the guys that he brought up, because toward the end of his career, he stopped really getting the top players. He was more about graduation rates than getting like the top players. And, and so, and so he has to be recommended or commended. And so with Chadwick, he died far too soon. You guys touched upon the fact that, his strength is just, goes without saying. The fact that during the times that he was producing or acting in these movies, Black Panther, even the latest Spike Lee flick that he was in, and 21 Bridges, he had cancer. And just think of the strength that he had to have just to get up every day, memorize his lines, and to do the action scenes or whatever, man. That just, it's something, man. And lastly, it's just, I remember when I got the news, I guess that was Saturday night, And my youngest daughter, she's coming downstairs, and she's almost in tears. You know, she's like, "Y'all heard the news?" Because she heard us talking about it. And she heard the news, and she just started kind of sniffing. She's about to cry, but we wouldn't let her. We tried to change the subject on her so she wouldn't cry, man. But I could see how it hurt her, you know. And so he effect on the young folks, man. He was the real superhero. I just, gosh, wish that he could have lived longer.
Yeah, man. The thing about Chadwick Boseman, a couple things. One, he passed away at 43, and we were all 47, 48, 49, but it just really helps to crystallize our mortality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know Lou, was going through his situation, which is the same kind of thing. But man, when you hear this man at 43 years old passed away, it's like young, man. And like I don't feel old. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm prime of my life, and it just kind of deepens the tragedy. But the other thing it does, and Chuck, I got to commend you on this in terms of Happy Physical Day. It really crystallizes that point again that you have to take care of yourself, man. And as educated people that have health insurance, you have no reason not to continue to get checked out. I'm not saying that he didn't. I think his situation was just an unfortunate circumstance. Because from what I understand from my doctor friends, if you get diagnosed with cancer in your 30s, it's oftentimes a bad situation because your metabolism can supercharge the spread of the cancer.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it ain't really something that could have been caught or fixed. But in our age, shit, we all got polyps.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You go get a colonoscopy, they don't find a polyp. And the thing about it is you catch it now, they just knock it out while you're in there. You wait till you're 62, you can walk around with that bag. So, definitely something to think about. But let's twist gears a little bit. I mean, it's still kind of a somber tone we got going on right now. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the times we've dealt with, loss in our own lives and, how we dealt with it and kind of tell those stories. Cool. You want to kick it off? Talk about True?
Yeah, as guys, my mom died when I was 33, and it was traumatic for me. And as a black man in America, just in general, you always try to be tough. You kind of have this thing. You have to be tough. You know what I mean? Gotta kind of really show no emotions. But it kind of sent me in like a tailspin for probably about 5 years because of not really knowing how to deal with that. I started drinking all the time. And one of the reasons I think I started doing that was, we go to school, we go to Morehouse, and you're trying to have the American dream, get a job or get a business, and you get certain things. Hey, I'm successful. This is going to kind of fulfill me, and that's when it kind of really hit me in the face like a ton of bricks, like things, money really don't define your happiness. And it goes back to how we talk about now, how we had such an amazing time in college with very little money. You know what I mean? Just, so, you know what I mean? Just think about this. So things, material things, money, those things that make it happen is really about family and just, just friends. And so that tailspin, like I said, lasts about 5 years of doing those emotions, depression, you know what I mean? And all those things that, that I kind of did when I turned. And then finally, years later, I did, started, I got help for it and talked to someone about it, but it was traumatic, man. It was very traumatic, man. And just really just kind of life changing, kind of put a lot of things kind of in perspective for me. What's really important.
Yeah, Lou B, talk about your pops. I remember their funeral.
Yeah, the roughest thing I've ever gone through in my life by far was losing my father. And it was unexpected. He had a series of heart attacks, and it was the final one that took him out. So, after the first couple, I started spending as much time with him as I could. But when the call came that he had passed, I was unprepared mentally for it. And Carmichael was saying, I have two younger sisters, and my mother survived my father. And my father had, in his own way, prepared me for what would happen if he passed. And still, I was unprepared. He was like my best friend. And one of the mistakes I had that I talked to people who experienced the loss of a parent is you need to talk to somebody about it. I held a lot of that in and tried to play the role of the shepherd for my family, and was internalizing a lot of that pain and went into depression. That I look back on it now was clearly depression. Speak to someone about it if you can, and don't try to shoulder everything on yourself. That's my experience.
I'll say mine is more recent because my parents passed away in 2017. So my mother had been in poor health, not bad health, but poor health for the last several years. She couldn't really move around a lot. And she was usually sitting at the kitchen table. And my dad was her caregiver. And my parents were like best friends in a lifelong love affair. So they spent all their time together. So, you know, unlike me, where I'm always traveling and, you know, different hotels and, you know, flying all over the fucking place all the time, my dad was at home every single night. You know what I'm saying? He was with my mom. They were together all the time. So he took care of her, man, with her hand and foot. You know what I'm saying? And he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I guess, toward the beginning of 2017. And shit, man, he checked out 6 months later. You know what I'm saying? He checked out in May. 5 months. He checked out in May. You know, we thought he was going to have surgery, whatever. That shit wasn't going to work. And he kept getting weaker and losing weight and shit. And shit, he checked out. So at that point, my mother was there. And that was tough. I mean, you know, losing your dad is definitely tough as a man. But you know, you kind of prepared to take it over. You know what I'm saying? I got my own family, so I got to look after my family. He prepared me to do that, so it's good. And then, shit, come Christmas time, and we used to always go spend Christmas in Memphis. We decided for the first time, shit, since we've been married, we were going to Disney World for Christmas. And I never forget, we go down there for Christmas. We weren't in Memphis, and we were going to go down to Memphis for New Year's. I called my mom the day before. She was all excited about me coming. And then shit, we got on the road the next day driving down. My sister called and she told us that my mom had passed away. I was like, fuck, right. You know, so I missed her. But she passed away on New Year's Eve. And, you know, I can't be mad. You know what I'm saying? She died with a smile on her face. It was one of those condition of the heart kind of things. It was natural causes. She probably just missed her husband.
Yeah, you know, I didn't lose a parent per se, but I did lose an in-law, my mother-in-law, who, you know, treated me like a son. And, you know, I've been married for 20 plus years. And so I spent a lot of time with her, you know, and her household and her raising me even to become a man as part of my marriage to her daughter. And it was tough because she suffered from dementia. And so that's a very mentally disabling disease, and you see the person go through it, and you know, you have these stages, and it became very severe toward the end. And you know, she stayed with us for quite some time, and just to kind of see up close and personal what dementia does. And at a certain point, she didn't even know like my name, you know, someone who I spent a lot of years with and going through that, where she didn't even know who I was, the man of the house, and that's how she referred to me. And so that was a tragic way in terms of, you know, seeing someone go through this process. But I think, you know, from a death perspective, I don't know if you ever get over it. You know, it's just that you find ways to cope. And, you know, it's been particularly tough, especially in my wife, you know, losing both of her parents. I still have both my parents, but then going through that experience, you know, to Lou's point, I don't think you're ever prepared. Even the fact that she was going through dementia. So and I think you're right, Cole Michael. Like if you want, and then same thing for you, Lou. If you want, you should talk to someone to figure out how do you cope with those depression moods and how you're feeling. You know, we'd like to self-medicate with alcohol and other substances, which, you know, doesn't fill the void. But it is an experience that, you know, I don't think you ever get over. It's just that how do you cope with it?
Yeah. What's today's date? The 2nd and the 1st? First tomorrow. So in a couple of weeks, it'll be 20 years since my father died. And there's a saying, time heals all wounds. It's fucking bullshit. What you learn is how to cope with it. but the wound doesn't heal. You just learn how to cope with that wound. You know, I want, before we move on, I wanted to shout out a couple of people like James and Cole Michaels. When my father died, they knew my father well, and they were by my side in a few days. Once I told them what happened, but you know, it's something that you learn to deal with. But yeah, you don't get over it.
Nah, it's definitely not something that's just easy to get over. You know what I'm saying? Um, Not at all. But James, you were just talking about the mother-in-law, and you mentioned that she had dementia, and it's one of those things. It's kind of a slow burn. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't happen suddenly, but it's one of those like slow decline kind of things. And it kind of leads us to another point of discussion where you talk about, at our age, we could those of us that still have our parents could get the call at any time. And you never really prepare for that. But even before that, though, a lot of times you can start to see their decline, and that also creates some challenges. Crump, why don't you pick it up and talk to us about the child becoming a parent and the parent becoming a child?
Yeah, so I guess I always looked at both my parents have always in my particular case has had their health. They've been relatively healthy throughout my life, and so, but it wasn't until really this whole pandemic when they were I required that they actually move into the house with me and my family, because I didn't want to have to go all the way across town to check on them all the time. And so when I moved them into my house, of course, we gave them their bedrooms or what have you. And the thing is that I just started to notice, for the first time, I really started to notice kind of their, I guess their decrease, I guess their mental capacities starting to decrease. Not so much from, although she had been in my house actually prior to the pandemic, covering for back surgery. She's always been active doing yoga and running and stuff like that. But with my dad, who's somebody who's always been like a go-getter and out on the town, and he was just one of those dudes that was always out, I could start to see that certain things were not necessarily the same, the things that he would talk about. And so essentially, man, it took getting used to. I'm able to take care of them. But it seems as though, like, even the simple stuff like, making sure they have taken care of their estate plan and doing the things necessary, I have to look over. I have to make sure that, my dad has done A, B, and C, and in which case, he was always the one looking after me. And now I'm the one talking to him, making sure that his stuff is in order. And it's like, wait, hold up, man. How did I get to this point? You know what I'm saying? So the roles have reversed. You always look at your parents as these people up here. It doesn't matter how old you get. They're always on a different level than you. And so now, I'm in a situation where I'm like, man, the roles are reversed. And I'm telling my parents what they need to be doing. I'm telling my dad, look, you need to, make sure these affairs are in order. And he's as stubborn as hell. So I'm like, God damn, can you listen to me? I know I'm your son. You always be my father, but I do know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you did raise somebody well, and so just, with the decreased capacity, and not to say that he's, in bad shape or anything, because he's not, but you just see the slow decline where he's not the active person that he once was. And part of that was because of the pandemic and had everybody in the house and you just kind of just sitting there. But, I wanted him to do A, B, and C while he was there to take advantage of, the kind of the lull in movement that's going on. And he just wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do the things that I thought were necessary. He can get done while we have this pandemic going on. So it's just weird, man. Luckily, I have not had, and, knock on wood, I don't get that call. But luckily, they have had their health for the most part. But, it is just become worrisome because you feel like, given my age, that time is coming. It's inevitable. And it's like, man, you guys have gone through it for the last 15, 20 years. I mean, KB, it's only been a couple years, but, you know, I got to be strong now for my family and be strong for taking care of them. So it just seems like, damn, I'm just wondering to myself whether or not I'll be able to do it. You know, if something happened, and am I going to be able to step up to the plate and make sure I get these things done and take care of the affairs that need to take care of.
For those of you who still have your parents out there, you know, I mean, even to this, I mean, it's been new for me. So, you know, it's not obviously not as long as Cool and Lou, but there were certain times I would call my mother, you know what I'm saying? And just, you know, like if I had a road trip, if I was stuck in the airport or something, or just kind of when I got to the hotel bar sometimes, I'd sit down, she'd be like, what you drinking? You know, when we would just talk. And I find myself like sometimes reach for the phone and be like, oh, shit, you can't do that. And it's painful. You know what I'm saying? It's some shit you gotta go through. And I try to reach out to my sister, you know what I'm saying? And so we fill a void for each other in that regard. But yeah, man, it's nothing like losing your parents. This shit is it's deep. You know what I'm saying? Anybody got anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I would just say there's a word for it. It's called the sandwich generation, because you're dealing with an elderly parent who's reverting, and also you're raising kids of your own, and that can throw us into like multiple versions of ourselves, right? We feel like an infant, a child, a parent, all at the same time. But you know, it really requires us to really like step up and be an adult, especially when our parents are ill and elderly, and having to manage a number of these contradictory feelings and identities that we're going through. But it's not easy.
Yeah, my mother and father are still alive. My father, but he's remarried. So, he has his situation. So it's not really that difficult with him. But my mother, she moved out here, and it's a little difficult because it's this one entitlement. They're 70, she's 71 years old, and it's this entitlement. Like, I did my work. I put in work. I got stripes. Bow down. So, and then you want them to have that dignity, and what I've realized is that it's falling back and communicating a different way, to still giving them that respect, to focus on the stuff that they love to do. My mother loves to cook, so I'm always, hey, can you show me how to cook this? There's different meals and stuff that I can do at the house. So to give her that leadership type of role, it helps. She loves to shop for my daughter. So, I let her, hey, you know what? You go ahead and have that shop day. I'm going to step back. You do the shop day. And she does that. So it's, you just figure out different ways, strategies that'll work. And it's starting to be a lot better now than it was before, because it was real frustrating. And I hear you guys, one of the things that you guys consistently say about coping with death, and Lou, you said something real important. You don't really forget. It's just you cope. And and we all remember the year in 2008, when Shakir passed away and he took his life. And I had to really, really cope with that, and because my grandmother died 30, like exactly 30 days after he died. And it was crazy when I was still dealing with Shakir's death, and because it was like, and I never really shared the story with a lot of people. It was a week before he died, and we were planning trick or treating, because that's something that we did with our kids. We took our kids trick or treating together, and we talked. He was in New York, and we talked for like about 2 or 3 hours. It was about about 2 or 3 hours. And I just stopped out of the blue. I was just like, dude, wait, what you doing? It's a Saturday night. Why you ain't out? It's New York. And he's like, man, I was just chopping it up, because he was just asking me questions about, he was about to, propose to his girl. And I was just like, schooling him a little bit, but I didn't really. It was crazy, dude. He was by himself in his apartment, and this was unheard of, dude. Been talking to this dude for years, and he never was by himself. And I didn't pay attention to the signs. And it's so glad that we come together and we talk, we greet each other, we respect one another. And then every once in a while we tell each other, man, I love you, bro. Love you guys. And that's good. And the thing that hurts me the most, I didn't get a chance to tell him I love him. But it was painful, and I was making a joke about you at home, you ain't out kicking it. But I believe he was trying to tell me it was something, dude, I'm not feeling right. But he was embarrassed because this is a brother that's always winning. And a lot of us, we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose, and we can't handle losing. We all want to win. We want the last word. So with that said, I mean, the coping, you're right. You right, Lou. You just got to cope. It ain't something that you just put up under the bridge. And I took a whole nother approach to friendship and what I got to deal with my mother. I'm embracing it. I love it. And it's going to be a process every single day. And I'm going to bring out the beauty out of it. So, because she ain't got that much time. And you guys have been through it. And we got to just, it could be frustrating. It is frustrating sometimes, but got to put that shit aside and just embrace that beauty and just take another way to handle it. Because I love my mother. Love her to death.
Boy, Quincy, you was about to chime in. That was deep, Chuck, man. Shit, man. Wow.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was going to say, as all of us, you know, I guess I have a unique story in that when it comes to death, I haven't had to deal with it much. I mean, the reality for me is my father died before I was born, so I didn't obviously have a relationship with him or know his side of the family. And then I didn't experience death until my grandmother passed, which ironically, she had a stroke the night I went over. And so crossing for me was a bittersweet piece into Omega because she died the next day. The interesting thing, though, again, that's a limited exposure to death, right? And so I've been blessed in that my mother's alive and my stepfather is alive. And so, you know, so those are my parents, obviously, and I deal with life with them. And so they've been married 30 plus years, and you go through seeing what that level of marriage and parenting looks like. And so I'm telling you all that background because I laughed at a couple of things that was shared when you talk about now the child parenting the parents. And so there are things that as an adult, we try to impress upon our parents to do, stay on top of. And I know there are times I find myself frustrated because I'm like, Mom, I'm used to you getting this concept or understanding this, or understanding that. And you dealing with these parents who at this juncture are real stubborn, you know, it kind of makes you laugh about it, right? But it's funny because the stubbornness I feel like I encounter is all a part of the upbringing from those parents who made us strong, you know, and it's their strength in having raised us to be young, strong, Black, articulate men who have obviously learned from the good and the bad from our parents' rearing to our own life's experiences and the things that we want to do in terms of taking care of our parents now that for all of his challenges makes it funny too. So like, you know, again, something as simple as like Chuck was saying, letting his mother take his daughter to the store, like, you know, what Crump was just saying about, you know, things with his mother and father, you know, letting them do when you got to get used to doing it at this stage. You know, you want to give your parents the room to still be them in their old age, because quite frankly, they've earned it. At the same time, we as the children, now the adults who have to take care of our parents, we have to do the rearing now and bring them in. And it's a challenge. It's fun. I'm glad and blessed to still be in a position to do it. And so, when I hear like Lou, who lost his parents, and Carl B, I'm sorry, Lou, who lost your father, and Carl, who lost your parents, I definitely appreciate those times that I still have with them now. And so I thank you all for sharing that experience, because again, I haven't had a whole lot of immediate experience with death. And, it makes me want to continue to appreciate the time I have with my parents more. So thank you.
Man, that's what's up, man. So, wow, Shakir Stewart, man, that was deep. That was probably one of the hardest days of my life, man. And he wasn't like, we wasn't tight partners like you were with him, Chuck. You know what I'm saying? But obviously Shakir was cool with everybody. One of the coolest dudes any of us probably ever met, man. And he was really doing his thing and shining, and he always had time for you. You know what I'm saying? Always had time for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was shit. I cried my ass off that day. That was a rough fucking day, man.
Yeah.
Carl,
I also want to pause there and say that, we experienced death collectively as a group, all of us, when we lost our
Mark
other
Stevens.
friend, Mark Stevens, while we were attending Morehouse College.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just think about Mark fucking that chick, I forget her name, when D Cloud was in the bed sleep all the time. Mark was so fucking cool, man. Another LA dude, man. He was excellent. And then they were missing or something. We heard they was in trouble. We were trying to find a hospital and all of that. That's before nobody really had cell phones and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was a crazy night, man. That was another Hubert Hall first floor brother, class of '94, man. Wow. Yeah, that's true.
I was just gonna say, although my parents had not, are still living, I should say. I had, I don't think I've shared this with too many people, but my best friend was shot and killed right when I graduated from law school, and then I had my favorite cousin died in a car accident. And so, and he died probably about 6 or 7 months after my best friend was shot and killed. And so I just remember just dealing with that and how depressed, and I just coming from, I know that I don't deal with death very well. Like that's one thing that I get very emotional with. So I'm really, even when I heard Lou was hospitalized, or when I hear people that I know that have died, man, I tear up, man, because it's just automatic. It's like I don't have that feeling. No, I just kind of let it go. It kind of, for whatever reason, I just turn into a bowl of Jello, man. And so I know that when my best friend and my cousin were killed, man, I know I was depressed for about 2 or 3 years after that. Man, and I mean, it really took some things out of me. So I can just imagine, prepare myself, when the inevitable comes, with my parents or what have you, and then still be strong for my kids, So I just wanted to throw that out there, man. Those are the two instances of death where, I just don't. It hits me hard, man. Even whenever I hear somebody sick or anything like that, man, I can't deal with it, man. I can't take it. So.
Imagine, brother. Well, I think the key takeaways from the night's episode is basically you got to treasure your parents while you got them. You know what I'm saying? And make that phone call. You know what I'm saying? Reach out. If you're not doing nothing, I can't call my mom right now. I can't call my dad right now and argue with him about politics and shit. I can't. You know what I'm saying? So take the time while you got them. And the other thing, get help. You know what I'm saying? Go talk to somebody. Go get some good, because you got to treat your mental health like we talked about in the episode before. It's just like a broken leg, man. You know, you can't look at it like you're too strong or it makes you weak. Go get some help. You know what I'm saying? Those are the takeaways. And I think honestly, man, we should dedicate this episode to Shakir Stewart and Mark Stevens. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to do all the pluggers tonight. Everybody know where we are. You know what I'm saying? We'll be back on the next episode, but we're gonna end this on a somber note tonight.
Hey, KB, I want to. We have a checklist of things to do that if you haven't gone through this death of a parent or even a cousin or a close one, a checklist of things that you have to get done after they die. We have a list that's pretty exhaustive on our website that you can go and check that out. What needs to be done immediately after, a week or two after, in preparation for the send-off, the burial, or cremation, or whatever the end result is going to be. So you can go to the House 94 podcast.com and check out that list. There'll be a link for that checklist.
That's what's up. All right, let's go out with a silent close, man. We'll be back for the next episode. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week.
All right, man. Peace.
All right, peace.
That's what's up.
Peace, brothers.
I do estate planning, but whether or not you use myself or anyone else, I think the most important thing is that make sure that you just don't, just put this off for another day. I think especially in the Black community, because it's not something that you think is going to affect you right now, we can just put it off for another day, put it off for another day. Put those things in order. And everybody, it doesn't matter how old you are, but if you have a family, whether it be kids, grandchildren, or what have you, it doesn't even matter if you don't have kids. It's important to have your financial affairs in order. It's important to have your healthcare affairs in order. It's important so that it doesn't become someone else's burden, and then they end up paying the cost for things that, something that you could have done at minimum cost. So just want to say that while I had the opportunity.
So Crump, if someone want to get in contact with you, how would a potential client reach out to you?
They can contact me via email, jcrump, JCRUMP, at smithgrahamcrump, all one word.com. That's SMITHGRAHAMCRUMP.com, or on our phone numbers are 301-925-2001.